outside of apartment 5B.
You're now tuned into the Apartment 5B podcast, where we chop it up about hip-hop, R&B, sports, love and life. Hosted by Kill.
What's good? You are tuned into Apartment 5B, hosted by your man Kill. I got my squad with me in effect as always. I got my brother. This is my guy, Penny. What's going on, good brother?
Man, I'm so happy to be back here. It's been a minute. I'm just hyped.
All right. No doubt. We got my brother Vague out of Brooklyn, finishing up our I think this is our sixth album.
Yeah, 6.
Yeah. So putting the finishing touches on that. What's good with you, bro?
And then, you know, Kill gave us mad homework for this, so, you know.
We did. All right. We got my brother Kelvin out of Queens. I'm used to the t-shirts. I didn't know about the sweatshirts now too, bro.
Yeah,
the sweatshirt game too.
You know what it is. B-Boy Records, you know, Boogie Down Productions.
Yeah.
Always good to be here.
No doubt. Quick thing about B-Boy Records. I don't know. I think we talked about this during the podcast. Said G was saying how these boys were really gangsters. You know what I mean? And his philosophy is that they got Scott LaRock killed because Scott was trying to leave B-Boy Records to go to Jive Records. You know what I mean? I never thought anything of it before, but think about this. Scott was hit from a bullet from a roof while the car was driving away, and he only hit Scott. That's some Avon Barksdale The Wire type thing. That's some Day of the Jackal type shit right there. Like, I'm in the hood every day, and dudes can shoot 50 shots and not hit nobody. So the fact that you hit one person, the person you wanted to hit, from a rooftop in a car driving away, that's some Day of the Jackal type shit. But no conspiracy theories tonight. We got my brother Ev. What's going on, bro?
Peace. Happy to be here. It's always a pleasure, privilege, and an honor to be amongst so many dope minds. So yeah.
Dog, this dude started Apartment 5B. I have no idea what he's talking about. It's a privilege. Nigga, it's your house. I don't know.
You kept it running. You know, you kept it going.
I kept it running, but it's yours, bro. So it's all that. But yo, we have an extra dope special guest tonight. We have got Michael Holman in the building with us tonight. I don't want to do a disservice. I'm gonna say a couple of things that I was able to find out. This dude was a choreographer on Beat Street. That's number one, which is incredible to me because anybody who knows me knows Beat Street is my favorite movie ever. It's not even it's ever. I literally could sit here and say every word to it. He was also associate producer, second unit writer. He's the creator of Graffiti Rock, which was crazy if y'all remember that back in the day. This is a certified B-boy from day one. Michael, thank you so much for chopping it up with us, good brother.
Wow, thank you. This is a real pleasure and honor, and so great to be on this panel with so many special, interesting, and honorable people, and I just can't wait to chop it up with y'all.
All right, no doubt, man. Y'all know me. Let's get right into it. We are going to jump into Beat Street. I want to set it off with you, your guest, Michael, this week. Prayerfully won't be the last time you chop it up with us. Where did the idea, you were part of the initial movie, you know what I mean? How did this even come to be? Like, can you take us back to, like, was there a pitch for it? This is 80, if it came out in 84, I'm assuming it was shot in 82, 83. How did the movie even come together in the first place to even get to theaters, to get to all of us who love the movie? How did it even start?
Well, interesting thing, if you were there back in those days, so much would happen in such a short period of time, such a condensed period of time. Just like in 6 months, so much could happen in hip-hop history, right? And so you'll be interested and surprised to find out that it really didn't take long for the film to kick off. It started out with I believe it started out with a script from my boy Stephen Hager, who was one of the early hip hop journalists. He became an editor and publisher of High Times magazine sometime later, Real Head, Hip Hop Head, Herbal Head, etc. And so he wrote a script called, forget the name of the script, Looking for the Perfect Beat might have been the name, something like that. I think it was something that Arthur Baker had turned into a track. And anyway, he was already writing articles in the East Village, in Village Voice, and in other publications about this burgeoning new movement that we later on called hip hop, but from the downtown, from Lower East Side, downtown East Village perspective. And so this script got around, and you know how things, how planets can align, stars can align, and somehow, somewhere, which I don't know anything about, Harry Belafonte and a cat named David Picker both passed away, who was a major producer in Hollywood. Obviously, Harry Belafonte was huge in Hollywood, but also in the music industry and civil rights movement and everything else, as we know. David Picker, on the other hand, was one of these cats coming from a Jewish family that were some of the fur traders back in the turn of the last century that actually built Hollywood. He was behind, his family was behind United Artists and films, and film companies like that. And he had been good friends with Harry, and they'd done other projects. So they decided somehow, somewhere, I wasn't privy to it, that they were obviously hearing about hip hop culture, and they decided, and they may have heard that breaking was being worked on in LA, which really beat Beat Street by a couple of months in terms of coming out, which was really about how hip hop was building up in Los Angeles. Obviously, years after it really started making the scene in New York, and being created in New York. And so there was an interesting competition between which film would come out first. But however and whomever put it all together, Harry Belafonte decided that he wanted to make a film about this culture called hip hop. And I had already, by this point, in 1983, they'd already been talking to Stephen Hager, talking about building the script, but that had never really happened. Maybe something based on his script. I'll tell you a little bit about that later. But they already started the meetings, and I was one of the first people that Harry Belafonte and David Picker started to talk to and interview. The reason is because at this point in '83, I had already, in 1979, I'm an OG of second wave of hip hop. I'm a pioneer of the second wave of hip hop, after it came downtown. I'm part of that crowd that brought it downtown. Myself, Fat Five Freddy, Charlie Ahern, Henry Chalfant, Martha Cooper. We were those cats and kitties who brought the culture downtown. Martha Cooper, as a photographer and journalist, was that first person to accidentally discover B-boys being arrested by the police for fighting in the subway, only to turn out that they were battling in the subway. She got that in the Daily News, I believe, in 1980, and that would have been the first publication that ever, in the mainstream publication, in which hip hop was, announced to the general public, and it was through B-boy, which is kind of interesting. Of course, the Sugar Hill Gang had come out in '79. But it's interesting, and it's an interesting debate, and I don't know how far we want to get into this. I mean, I'm kind of going all over the place here.
Bro, we can go as deep as you want, bro. Ain't no time schedule. Let's go as far as you want.
And I'll just say this as a disclaimer. I've always believed that being from California and coming from Bay Area, which is a very mixed black, brown, Asian, even white world that mixes up together a lot more than a lot of other places in the world, in this country. We have a lot of soul and we have a lot of heart, and it's, the home of Tower of Power, Sly Stone, the Whispers, the Whispers came from LA, but whatever. We had our own soul and we had our own funk. But when I came to New York in '78, having grown up around Europe and the United States and kind of lived around the world, I think I had this advantage in that I could see hip hop. I could see the forest from the trees in a way that a lot of people who were born and raised in New York at the time couldn't, because I saw it objectively. And like, for example, little things like I'm going to these park jams and seeing the 90% of the population of these park jams are middle school kids. They're not high school. They're not even out of high school. They're all middle school kids because they're the ones who can't get downtown. They don't have the money to go to the clubs, to go to Studio 54, to go to Bonds, to see the Gap Band or Luther Vandross. That's what everybody wanted to do in the Bronx, like anywhere else. They want to see the Gap Band. They want to see Luther Vandross. They want to see Funkadelic. And it was the middle school kids who couldn't go to see these events and couldn't go to the discos who were the perfect audience, the captured crowd for Bambaataa, for Flash, for Herc. And a lot of people don't even know that and don't even consider that. It was the middle school kids who were the engine that drove hip hop culture. But the thing that I found really interesting, the reason I bring this up is because when you think about 79 and you think about the one point I wanted to make, and then I'll shut up for a second, is that yes, you had Sugar Hill Gang, coming out in 79. Most of the lyrics are from my boy Kaz, Grandmaster Kaz, but never mind that. There was a chance that rap could have easily become a novelty music form, and it could have come and gone. But, and this is the point I'm making, when it came downtown, there was an accidental anthropological paradigm that happened, which is we on the downtown scene, artists, fine artists, filmmakers, punks, new wavers. I started a band with Jean-Michel Basquiat called Gray. We were all over the place. We thought that these kids uptown, these writers, dancers, MCs, and turntablists, we didn't call it turntablists at the time, we thought they were all one thing. We thought they were all one movement, and they weren't. A lot of writers were like, "Yo, we're into rock and roll." A lot of the MCs, and a lot of MCs had nothing to do with the B-boys or B-girls. A lot of them were originally B-boys and B-girls. Like Sha Rock was a B-girl initially. Grand Mix of DXT, sorry, B. Started as a B-boy. It's so interesting the way people experimented with different things, but it was a disparate thing. But when it came downtown, we, in our ignorance and innocence, thought it was a movement with these elements, and in many ways, not exclusively and not only us, but in many ways by putting it together and showing it to our friends downtown in clubs like my spot, the Grill, and at the Roxy and places like that, we accidentally kind of sort of helped put it together as a multifaceted movement. And as a multifaceted movement, it went to London, Japan, Tokyo, and Paris in '82 before it ever went to Pittsburgh. And so it was, in a weird way, the downtown scene, because of its connection to the media, New York City is a media capital of the world, and the way it spread out to the rest of the world, in an interesting way, you could argue that the downtown scene and us packaging it as a multifaceted medium, and the way that even b-boying in some cases you could argue was a lost leader of hip hop culture. People were like, I'm not sure what a guy rapping on a mic with a turntable, and I know what graffiti is, but some kids spinning on their head was something that drew a lot of the general public. So what was going on uptown was a different thing. Hip hop had been going on for years before I had ever discovered it or found it. I got exposed to it. Clubs like Stardust Ballroom, Gun Hill Road Club, and all these different places. The Disco Fever, but that was just rap and DJing. And when it came downtown, it became a multifaceted thing, which again blew apart after the 80s and hip hop was just rap. But it's interesting that that hip hop culture owes a lot to the downtown scene, to the fact that it's a multifaceted, in the way that we sort of saw it as a multifaceted movement. And you could argue that perception had a lot to do with the reason why it's a global movement today.
That's dope. That's dope. That's dope. I was reading something recently about that. I forgot where, but it was like everybody wasn't all together. So just like you said, like, you know, it wasn't like, you know, again, when hip hop got to me in '84 with Beat Street, it kind of was just like, this is just what it is. It's all four of these people together. But I think I was reading, I think it was Quest's book, his new book that I was just telling you about, where he was saying like that everybody wasn't together like the way it seemed. You know what I mean? Like you said, once I saw Beat Street, it was just like, this is it. Like, this is what the package deal is. It's like a value building. If people don't remember, there was a time when you couldn't go to McDonald's and be like, give me a number one. You had to actually order things individually. You know what I mean? And eventually it just became, eventually it just became a give me a number one. But you used to have to order Big Mac, and if you wanted fry, you ordered everything separately, and then it just became a package deal. Tell me this, Penny, when was the first time, because Beat Street for me, to be honest, I was sitting here thinking about it. I want to say, I have to call my mother, because I want to say she took me to the movies to see it, but I can't remember, because again, I'm 10 years old. I just turned 50, so this is a minute ago. But I know for me, what did it was the VHS tape. As soon as Beat Street came on VHS, and I watched that movie every day, 3-4 times a day. I can't tell you how many times I've watched that Roxy scene, trying to learn how to windmill. I still never got it. I got my swipes down. The footwork was there. The back spins. Could never windmill, though. I could never do it. But that, to me, is like my earliest memories of Beat Street, coming home from school every day. And it literally was like a religious practice to me. It's almost like coming home and how somebody would pray when they get... I would come home and watch Beat Street numerous times throughout the day, all day. Penny, what about you, bro? What are your earliest memories of Beat Street?
This is not going to surprise you, because I have a very similar answer. Originally though, I know for sure that I didn't see it when it came out, because I saw Breaking in the theater. For whatever reason, I don't know what happened, that I didn't see Beat Street, but I saw Breaking. So I saw it like after everybody, like a couple years later probably. But I had the VHS, and I still have the VHS. I checked with my brother today. It's with my vinyl over there with him. He didn't send me a picture though. I was going to send you that picture. But man, I watch that every day, every single day. So like to put that together, I don't remember exactly, but I know I was late, maybe a couple of years. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know how I saw Breaking in the theater. I remember being in the theater watching Breaking, but I did not go see Beat Street. I'm not sure why.
Right. Kel, what about you? You was in Queens, man. What was your first Beat Street experience?
So just like you both, I didn't see it in the movie theater. My parents weren't big movie people, so they didn't take us to the movies a lot. I remember seeing it. My man on the block, Gregory, he big hip hop head, going to the movies all the time. He went to go see it, and I remember him bringing out, Carver, like you said, we were all trying to break dance just off the movie and stuff. Just, you can see the video clips and stuff like that. But I think he bought the VHS, and we were at his house watching it. It was probably like late '84, maybe '85 actually, that I think about it when I first saw it. And I just remember just us being on the street, trying everything. That, like I said, the Roxy scene is obviously I'm trying to be crazy, that's it.
Right. Ev, what about you, bro?
Same, pretty much the same. Like, going to the movies was an event in my household. So you had to take the whole family. Everybody had to want to go see the movie. My parents they weren't trying to see Beat Street. So I remember seeing it on VHS. I want to say, I was sitting there trying to think. I don't know if it was my sister. My sister was like 4 years older than me, but she was the one that really introduced me to hip hop for real. So I think it was her that brought the tape home one day. Because she was the one, we would be up Friday nights watching, waiting for the hip hop stuff to come on. The whole story. So I think it was her that actually introduced me to the actual movie, and I remember we just watched that joint over and over. And soon, not too far after, we in the mirror trying to perfect our pop lock skills. Nobody could windmill. Same thing, Kill. Nobody could really get that.
What is it about the windmill, dog? Like You can windmill,
I
Cal?
can windmill.
No.
I can do
Bro, I tried so many times to learn how to windmill. It could never come. It's this scene in the Roxy where boy goes into a windmill and comes right back out of it. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. Like, it was crazy. Penny, could you windmill?
See, this is what I was gonna say. I could when I was like 12, maybe 11, and then I got so big and goofy. You know, I was like this big when I was 13. You know what I mean? I was like
Right.
6'2". You know, so I could not do it, man.
All right. And Vay, what about you? When was the first time you got on the B Street?
So when B Street came out, I was probably 7, I think. For me, I didn't go to the movie theater. It was more of a family gathering, you know, that back room where all the younger but older dudes are and girls, and they watching, you know, hip hop, they watching kung fu flicks. That, like, I had already been exposed to a lot of that just being from Brooklyn. But seeing it in the film, that was my first time, and obviously I was captivated because, you know, this is a film versus a thing we were doing in the streets, even at that point, early 80s or whatever. I could windmill. Y'all don't know, back in my day, you know.
Dog, I need to go to YouTube because they probably got a tutorial. See, for the young folk watching, you just had to learn to do stuff on your own. There was no go to YouTube and learn how to use the MPC or learn how to backspin. We had to learn everything just from watching.
Somebody, because you look like a sucker if you ask somebody. You got
Yo, here's the wild part, Penny. I'm gonna tell you how far it's going. I posted a beat I made the other day, and a boy asked me, "Yo, what's that sample?" And I'm like, "You want my social too?" Like,
I saw that.
Where they do that?
What's that sample?
Like, this what we do in the Lord year 2024? Just ask for samples? You wonder how much money I make before taxes too? Like, so like you said, you didn't want to ask anybody how to do it, but Veg, I salute you because that was the one move. That in the 1990s. The 1990s when you jump up on your hand and then spin. Right. I could never do that.
I mean, one of the things
on the head, yeah.
One of the main things that I know I used to do, not even just with breakdancing and popping and all that, you practice in the crib till you get it. And then when you're outside, you already know how to do it. You know what I'm saying? Because you, like you said, if you go in and asking, unless it's a family member.
Right.
You don't want to look back.
Right. Nah. So, yo, for everybody here, if y'all got a question for Mike, jump in. Like I said, this is my favorite movie, so I got questions for Dave. So just jump in. Tell me this. I want to just throw the big joker out on the table. Whose idea was it to kill Rainbow? Because that fucked up my whole entire childhood. Let's just put that. Big joker, I'm gonna just throw it out right now. We ain't even gonna get to it. That crushed me. And the crazy thing is, I was watching B Street last night with my daughter, Nay. I mean, she's 18 now, but we've been watching it since she was 4. And to this day, that scene still bothers me. Like, Rain spit is on the thing, and I'm like, Rainbow, just let him go, man. Just let him run. Like, yo, rumble the ball on the platform. Like, don't pull him back. Like, I'm 50 years old, still dealing with Rainbow and Cochise from Cooley High dying. Like, so whose idea was it to kill Rainbow?
It's like, who killed Bam? Why did they kill Bambi, right?
Right. Like, so whose idea was this, man? Was going into this, was we got to kill somebody? Like, whose idea was this to kill Rainbow, man?
To be honest, I really don't know. It could have been the screenwriters that came in later from Hollywood, or could have been Stephen Hager. I'm not really sure. I think it was after the fact. I think it was just a great way to have some real drama. Somebody dying on the third rail is like, obviously, and don't forget, people, you know, a lot of these writers who came in on this project were Hollywood writers, and they, you know, none of them knew anything about the culture, and they would interview a lot of us, and they'd hear stories, and you know, and I'm a screenwriter myself. I mean, I wrote the screenplay to the Basquiat film that Julian Schnabel directed. Anyway, you hear things and you do research. And you hear something, it's like, wow, that's a great idea. I got to use that. That's how it happens. It's not always like by committee. And by the way, starting out, I went off on a diatribe that didn't really have that much to do with Beat Street. So I'll try to get back onto the subject matter.
No, it's all good, bro. It's all good. It's all good. I mean, to this day, I mean, I remember being a kid, and right before they fall, Spit is spraying spray paint in his eyes, and me and my boys were like, yo, Rainbow would have been blind anyway. Even if he did live, he wouldn't have still been able to, you know, he would have been blind, and you know, he was. like just as kids, like yo, that I mean, seriously, that death really like that was like tragic to me. Like it was like, and then you cut to the next scene, and it's Lee with his mom, and like that was like me with my mom. Like I knew Ramo, man, and it's just a testament to how great that movie is. That 40 years
for me to hear this. It's good for me to hear
100%, 100%. You know. I did the same thing. I watched it last night, Ben, and I couldn't believe how shooken up I was after that. Like, because it was. No, I mean, back in the day, it was like Optimus Prime dying, man. I mean, because I was already like doodling. I was already doing that, you know. I wrote graffiti for many decades. 3. Yeah, no, I mean that shook me up, man, and I couldn't believe. And then being a grown up, you know, I'm sure I'm thinking in a different way. I'm sure, like back in the day, I don't know how much I was thinking about the baby. You know, and his lady, and now I'm like, hey, you know. But it was,
I was just hanging out with John Chardonnay, who played Ramo. He lives out in LA, down in San Pedro, you know, where Snoop Dogg is from, that area. He was just at my crib a couple of days ago. Oh, wow. Long Beach, yeah. He's from San Pedro, Long Beach.
That's crazy. That's great.
Oh, he lives there now. He's from New York.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's definitely
from New York.
Right.
Yeah.
Now that was one of my other questions too. Could Ramo really write? Because could these dudes really tag?
No, he was an actor, and you know, he was not a writer.
They had him filling in and shit.
He was filling in bits and bobs. Yeah. But you know, it's funny. I mean, I don't know how deep you want to get into it. I had a lot of issues with the production. I was an associate producer, which means, you know, that's the producer that's hired in by the production team to bring authenticity to any film. So like, you know, if you got a film about, you know, firemen, you know, you're going to hire somebody and give them the title of associate producer who's actually a fireman or something like that. And so, you know, by this time in '83, like I said, since '79, I was in the game, and you know, I was already bringing artists downtown and doing all kinds of things, going uptown filming, et cetera, and I was hired as associate producer. I was a talent wrangler. I was bringing everybody in, and there were so many moments when I would be asked my opinion about something, and I'd be like, "Nah, that's not hip hop," and they'd be, "Okay, thanks anyway," and they'd go ahead and do it. And I'm like, "Oh." So you guys, as 10-year-olds, have a completely different picture of the film than I did as a 25-year-old. You know, really almost 30-year-old. So.
Yeah, it's great, but I mean, it still hits to this day. What were you gonna say, Penny?
No, I mean, just because you asked about the Ramo character and in the script, and you probably don't know this, but were there like intentional parallels for, you know, with Wild Style, or like real, like, you know, like Spit and Cap, or was there like a real?
I think there was a lot of you know, checking out Wild Style. I mean, Wild Style was in many ways arguably more authentic. I mean, you had like, you know, you had Busy Bee Starsky and, you know, Cold Crush Brothers, and you had, you know, Rocksteady Crew, and you had a lot of things going on. You had Lee Quiones. I mean, you had a lot of real players in Wild Style, and it came out a year before. And there's absolutely, I'm sure, and you know, and Charlie Ahern is a good friend of mine, and I'm sure that in terms of the screenwriters, which I wasn't involved in, I did write one moment in a scene in Beat Street. But the screenwriters and what was going on in Stephen Hager's original script, his original script wouldn't have had a lot of borrowing or biting from Wild Style, but later on with Paul Golding, and I'm looking at the poster now, who some of the writers on it, Paul Golding and Andy Davis, who was the first director of Beat Street. He got fired about, I think, 3 weeks into the production, and then replaced by Stan Lathan, who was directing, TV director, was directing Soul Train. I think there probably was a lot of biting and overlapping with Wild Style,
Now it's funny because I want to ask the panel because for me, I saw
Spit and Cap would have been an easy parallel there. Sorry, Kill.
No. Because for me, I didn't see Wild Style till after Beat Street. Like if Beat Street dropped in '84, I didn't see Wild Style. I'm from Philly, so I didn't see Wild Style till maybe '86, '87. I don't know what it was in Philly. I don't know why it got to us so late. But like Vague and Kelv, like y'all being from New York, which one did y'all see first, Wild Style or Beat Street?
I saw Wild Style first.
Okay.
So yeah, and I thought it was parallels too, though. The only thing I think of when I think of Beat Street, I think of I'm like Herb is not DJing. So I was wondering, is that something that he didn't want to do, or he's, you know?
Nah, I mean, there's a lot of questions like that we scratch our heads all the time about, and which is why Arthur Baker and I, you know, maybe you want to talk about this later, Kill, but Arthur Baker and I, you know, had a lot of frustrations with the production of the film and its lack of authenticity in so many times and so many moments, and you know, in our excitement in making and bringing Beat Street to Broadway is part of the impetus for that.
Okay. And for people watching, we're definitely gonna chop it up about Beat Street coming to Broadway and everything like that. So just everybody hold tight for that. Vay, what about you? Which one did you see first?
Probably Beat Street.
Okay.
Wild Style I saw in bits and pieces because I didn't have the tape. Like I said earlier, I was younger, so it was more of a what's on kind of thing. But yeah, it was a while before I saw Wild Style in its entirety.
All right. What about you, Ev? Oh, my fault.
No. Go ahead, Ev.
Oh no, it's about the same. I saw Beat Street first, and I saw Wild Style a couple years later, actually.
Yeah, I'm wondering why it didn't get to Philly. Like I don't even remember.
Let me tell you what I was going to tell you. Why.
Okay.
Beat Street was technically, you know, a Hollywood film, not a big budget Hollywood film, but a Hollywood film. Wild Style was an independent art film, you know, made with a low budget, so therefore it didn't have the distribution, it didn't have the press, it didn't have all the muscle, you know, didn't have Harry Belafonte behind it. So it just didn't have the distribution and exposure that a Beat Street had. It's that simple.
Okay. Yeah. And then even Star Wars for me, which is a documentary, came even later. I found that later, even after, you know, Wild Style came up. Were you gonna say, Penny?
Because Star Wars was on PBS. Dudes had that on tape. And I mean, I know my boy Harold had it on tape, and we watched that shit to death.
Right.
That came up. Star Wars, I believe, came out within that same year or two period.
Yeah.
83, 84, 85.
I think a year. Yeah.
Now tell me this, Michael. I saw Kool Moe Dee saying that Beat Street was supposed to be about the Treacherous Three. Is there any do you see anything? He's saying that's why he was in it, because it was supposed to be based off of them. That's why it was like, you know, the three people. It was, you know, Kenny, Ramo, and God, what was this? The dude, the friend,
Charlie. Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie and Charlie. Like, so is there any truth to that Beat Street was supposed to originally be based off of the Treacherous Three?
Yo, Mo is a very good friend of mine. What's up, B? Hope you're watching. I'm pretty sure that probably, if Mo said it, it's true, and I'll tell you why. Where the truth would be on that is the Treacherous Three would have been a bigger part of Stephen Hager's original script. So there were two scripts and there were two approaches. You know, there was Stephen Hager's, which was really a lot rawer and a lot rougher, a lot more profanity, more sex, a lot of things like that. And then they wanted to like make something that would be PG and get across. And you know, Stephen Hager's, naturally, knowing him, his script would have been way more about rap. And as you see in Beat Street, funny enough, the first really important hip hop film, breaking is way bigger in it than the MCing, and that's not intended. It's just that's the way it played out in the production and the making of the film. It was easier for breaking to break through that fourth wall, if you will, and amaze than it was for the producers to get it right. I mean, you know, I was the, like I said, I was a talent wrangler, and I was working with Treacherous Three. You know, they were on my TV show, minus LA Sunshine, of course. But I was working with, you know, Special K was my first friend in hip hop, and one of my first friends in hip hop, and I made sure that they were down. But then, you know, they didn't know how to, you know, the writers who were Hollywood writers didn't know how to focus the protagonist as an MC. They didn't know whether Kenny was an MC or a DJ. It's a little confusing, to be honest. And the B-Boys had no real representation in terms of star power except for Lee, and yet their battle at the Roxy was probably the most important scene in the whole film, you know, which I'm really proud of because I had a lot to do with that. But anyway.
All right, we're going to talk about that because the next question I got for the panel, who are your fave 3 characters? You know what I mean? Now, for me, it's Lee, #1 easy. In 1984, I wanted to be Lee. I wanted to grow sideburns. Whatever Lee did, I wanted to do. I begged my mother for a leather bomber with the fur on the hood. Anything that Lee had, the Pumas, the Windbreaker, anything that there was. I'm an only child while my mom's only child, so I didn't have any older siblings to kind of have an older brother school me. So it was like, Lee to me was like, that was it. And that was my introduction to B-boying and to breakdancing, and why I fell in love with it so much was because of that. My second favorite character, of course, well, not of course, but Ramo. I mean, this is my first introduction to really graffiti too. Like we've done a show before with Apartment 5B, and it was like, what is your hip hop foundation? You know, like, and if you had a table, like, what are the 4 legs that holds the table up? And one of mine was, of course, Beat Street. I mean, Beat Street will always be the foundation for me because, again, I'm like Calm. I met this girl when I was 10 years old. I feel like 10 years old is the time when you kind of now can, you know, you're in 4th grade, you kind of know what you like, you know what you're getting into. And for me, it was hip hop. So again, with Ramo, this is just me tagging in books all day. Like, this is graffiti all over my room, you know, just anywhere I could. I was always too shook to like really go out and throw up anything. And then on top of that, I didn't have any old heads around me who were even doing that, you know, to even be like, yo, can I go with y'all to really kind of do it? And then I mean, number 3 is Kenny. I mean, this was my first time really seeing the DJ, seeing a mixer and 2 turntables and everything like that. So for my DJ experience, I feel like it's always Beat Street and Jam Master Jay. I think I saw them on like, what was that Dick Clark show, American Bandstand, you know, and it was the first time me seeing the DJ coffin and seeing the turntables in the coffin. It was like, yo, that was it. So those are my 3 fave characters. Michael, you being part of the movie, what were your 3 favorite characters from the movie?
I've just got to make a comment that by what you've described and the age that you were, it's fascinating. This is something I'd never thought of, and you guys are like blowing my mind and giving me all these insights that are valuable to me right now. If you think about being 10 years old, and it explains certain things about Beat Street that I had never thought about. But if you're 10 years old or 11 or 12, maybe you can identify much easier with a B-boy or a B-girl or a writer than you can with a DJ who's got this kind of complicated equipment and has a very sophisticated way of like creating music that may be a little bit beyond you, or a rapper who is coming from it. The rapper in a way seems to be at the zenith, at the very apex of sophistication within hip hop culture, because he or she is not only spitting rhymes and has a delivery and a flow, but is a poet. Poetry is very sophisticated, and I'm just guessing at this. This is kind of blowing my mind. That the reason why, and it ties in with what I was saying earlier about hip hop. The engine that drove hip hop early on was middle school kids, middle school latchkey kids, is because those heroes of yours for that film were the ones that you could, at a young age, could identify with in terms of what they did and how they could shine.
Right.
And that's very interesting. But for me, my favorite characters, it's interesting. You know, I definitely like Lee, and I always love Ray Don Chong for a lot of other reasons. You know, I would, you know, and I'm a sucker for my own crew, New York City Breakers, collectively as one character. Yeah, I'm too close to it to really say, but go ahead, you guys.
Now, Penny, what about you? Who are your top 3 characters, man?
I mean, I put down Ramo for the obvious reasons, the graph. I mean, I was already doodling and wanting to do something like that. Lee was just so nice, man. Like, his swipes are so smooth, man, and the nutcrackers so like floating. Man, I couldn't do shit like that. The dude was incredible to me. And I got, for my third, I got Charlie. I got Charlie / the bodyguard homie, because I really like that dude that chewed the can.
From the Bronx. This ain't New York City.
Charlie, I mean, both of those dudes really, because Charlie, who doesn't have a dude like that who didn't have a dude like that in their crew? You know, like in my crew, the dude, he was like selling candy in school and shit. And he was like, everywhere you go, like he was there. You go to this guy's house, he was there. You go to this guy's house, he was there. And then we had plenty of tough dudes. I like that big dude. I don't know why. He was kind of corny and kind of out of place, but
it always killed me when he bit the can and then chewed it up. Like, I mean, so
you guys are blowing my mind because you're really educating me to what's important or what was important to you and how. I'm not going to give away too much, but anyway, I'm just going to say this is educational. You're getting the 10-year-old and the 50-year-old. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah. Well, fuck the 50-year-old. I'm just listening to the 10-year-old, man.
Right. Yeah.
That's who you are still. When you're talking about, you're still 10.
And that's the thing that, again, one of my teens, I work with kids in the hoods of DC, and one of my teens, where I was telling him about the show, he was like, yo, why are you so hyped for the show? Like, and I'm like, yo, we talking about B Street, my favorite movie. And he was like, yo, you like a little kid again. And I'm like, that's what I love about hip hop. Like, it still brings out the passion that I had when I see and Ev knows, when I see a studio, my eyes still light up like it's the first time I went in the studio in 1988. Like, it doesn't dull. Like, I will come in here and turn the lights off and just have the machine on with the lights on, and that same pick I get from seeing EPMD's Strictly Business album cover, and they in the studio and you see all the lights. It's the same feeling I get at 50, and like Nay loves it because she's always like, you know, Daddy, y'all work so hard, and parents, adults, y'all seem so stressed, but whenever you watch Beat Street, it's like you just light up again. You like a little kid again, you know, and it's just like, yeah, because I'm saying every word, you know, like I'm a little kid again, you know. So, Baveg, what about you? Who are your top 3 favorite characters?
For me, it's the same 3 for a lot of reasons that you kind of mentioned. I think in a lot of ways, you know, being in Brooklyn, New York, being like around 7 or 8 years old around this time, being in the streets and doing some of these things, like we mentioned earlier about, you know, the backspins and shit like that and getting it right. This was like education, you know, like, oh, this is what a master at breakdancing looks like. This is what, you know, MC is supposed to sound like, you know, like watching, like I didn't go to the club, right? So this is my first time getting to look at Treacherous 3 and, you know, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5. And the same thing with the DJing, even the party in general, and the clothes and the fashion. So for me, those 3 characters kind of represented, well, I didn't say what they were, Ramo, Lee, and Kenny, kind of represented furthering, like pushing my knowledge of hip hop, the culture, a little bit further for scenes that I couldn't see because maybe they were taking place in parties I couldn't attend. To Michael's point, you know, I was at the park jams. I wasn't in middle school. I was a little younger, but you know, Mama let me go outside, so I was there. But yeah, I mean, I think that's what's so incredible about a film like that is how it exposed us at a younger age to hip hop. Maybe not in a way that was completely real. Even though when Ramo died on the train tracks, you know, I'm from Brooklyn. I'm like, maybe that shit be happening. Like it, you know, it was sad, yeah. But you know, it felt more like a reality when that happened. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, those are my characters.
All right, Ed, what about you, bro?
Yeah, man, kind of very similar to what y'all said, but my 3 would be 1 Lee, for some of the reasons y'all mentioned. One for me, you know, Philly has a lot of lingo. To me, Lee has one of the illest lines in the movie. This cat said, he said, "Let's do the right thing. Let's serve these dudes." Yo, that was so ill to me. I was like, yo, he said, "Let's do the right thing." Damn, let's serve these dudes. So from that point, Lee was just, he was like, you know, that was my hero. And plus I was a young dude too. So he was, you know, and of course, Kenny and Ramo, because I think with all three of them too, they were so passionate about their art.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can, like, they all had the individual age groups and dynamics and all like that, but they were so passionate. You know, Kenny in the crib, just doing his thing with the tables, and he's bringing out instrumentation, and he's doing his thing there. You know, Lee just want to go and be in the scene. He just, every time you see Lee, he's it's gonna be some movement. It doesn't matter where you at, how it's going down. And then, you know, same thing with Ramo. Like, he was so passionate about his art. So I think that was the thing that even fueled me as a young kid, because I spent time in the house doing art, stuff like that. When I seen like that on the big screen, I was like, oh, okay, I can keep doing this. This is part of a journey here. So let me stay locked into this thing. So for those reasons, man, those are the three that really like stood out for me.
All right, and Kel, here's the thing, Michael. Prayerfully, like I said, this won't be your last time. For you to kind of get to know Kelv a little bit, every answer is going to be Queens. You can ask him who is his favorite person in the world. Who's your favorite MC from Brooklyn? He's going to say LL Cool J. Every answer is going to be Queens. So I'm really interested to see who you were going to pick as your top three favorite characters. This dude will be like Run, LL, and Prodigy. It's like what they run in the movie. They run in the right. So who are your top three characters, bro?
Actually, it's a little bit similar to Penny, but Michael made a point when he mentioned the crew. So now I want to kind of change a little bit. Charlie was my favorite character. I liked him because he believed in everybody. He was like, you know, trying to push this guy's like, oh, you need to go. This is my man Kenny, he's my man Lee. You know, he's behind him. He was really, you know, encouraging him. So I liked him from that aspect. Lee, like you said, is just dope. He's just fed up those. But then I like Rocksteady. If I'm gonna change it up, I was gonna say Ramo, but Rocksteady is. I've always loved Rocksteady, so that's
It's funny you said. Oh, what were you gonna say, Penny?
No, Michael, go ahead.
Michael, I'm sorry. What were you gonna say, Michael?
No, I mean, listen. You know, I represented, agented Rocksteady before I ever met the Floor Masters, which I then sort of used with Phase 2. We worked together to turn them into an all-star team, turn them into the New York City Breakers with crews from Dynamic, from Seven Deadly Sins, whatever. But yeah, I mean, you know, I'll always say this, you know, Floor Masters, I mean, the Rocksteady crew were the nicest dancers. They were the nicest, nastiest B-boys, you know, Ken Swift, Legs, and they were and are my friends. But you know, New York City Breakers were the power breakers. They're the basis of Olympics now today, and they won that battle. So you know, what can I say?
Now here's the crazy thing.
You know they won that battle.
Now here's the crazy part, because I want to touch on that, because my next question was, who is your favorite slept-on character? And my answer was the Rocksteady crew and the New York City Breakers. Now, the thing that a lot of people don't know about is the first breaking crew that I knew about was the New York City Breakers. I heard about them before I heard about the Rocksteady crew. So at 10, I don't know. I know the New York City Breakers are battling somebody else. I don't know who the other crew is. I didn't know about Rocksteady at 10, but the New York City Breakers were there. And you were just kind of explaining. So the Floor Masters. So who formed the New York City Breakers?
Myself and Phase 2. Well, really, technically, I did all the work, but the idea was mine and Phase 2's. Phase was like an ambassador for me with the scene uptown. He's like an original B-boy, MC, and writer, obviously a more famous writer.
Right. So we're talking about the legendary Phase 2.
Phase 2.
Yeah.
Right.
Lonnie Wood. And he's actually in Beat Street for a second. And he was supposed to be a major character in the film. But Lonnie is a very, you know, interesting and unique individual. Not easy to manage and control all the time, but brilliant mind. And, you know, but didn't always fit into any kind of, you know, organized kind of thing. You know, he was always going to do his own thing. Anyway, he and I were boys for years. He knew I was not from New York. He knew I was from outside that culture, and was always this ambassador and this doorway and this educator for me as to what it was all about. And there's a story about how this happened. I don't know how much time you have, but
knock yourself out, bro.
I'll try to do it in a short version. So you know, it's 1981. This is a couple of years into me working with Fab Five Freddy and Charlie and Martha Cooper and Henry Chalfant, bringing the culture downtown. And you know, I've gotten cats gigs at the Mud Club and other clubs. I'm already interviewing Bambaataa for the 1982 article in the East Village Eye, which is the first time that the term hip hop is ever published is ever written in a publication. I did that. It was me interviewing Bambaataa. I'm doing a bunch of things in the game, and that first party that Fab Five Freddy and I and an English artist named Stan Peskett threw in April 29th, 1979 at the Canal Zone, which was a loft on Canal Street that my English friend Stan Peskett, he's like 10 or 15 years older than me. I knew him from back in the day. We threw this party that was really to introduce the Fabulous Five, which was a graffiti collective led by Lee Kionez. Fab Five Freddy was their spokesperson, you know, and was also a writer in the crew. We put together this party, and at that party on April 29th, 1979, that was truly the very first time that what would later become hip hop culture rubbed shoulders with the downtown art scene. And that's important because a couple of years later, it would be the first time that it would be the hint of what was to come, which was bringing hip hop artists downtown to our clubs downtown. So by 1981, after Jean-Michel Basquiat and I started Gray at that party in 1979, 2 years later, he blows up as a painter and leaves the band, and we're all kind of left to our own devices, and the band breaks up. And I get heavily into hip hop culture, and I'm known downtown as this impresario. That's kind of why I like that guy Charlie too, by the way. That was me in a way. You know, the cat that was putting on parties and giving people that shine, and the behind the scenes impresario. So this guy Stan Peskett, this English artist, says, "Yo, Michael, my friend who I went to art school with, Malcolm McLaren, is coming to my 5th or 6th Canal Zone party." He kept throwing these parties over the years, and I'm like, "Oh my God, this is great." Malcolm McLaren, if I'm already by the summer of '81, I've already, you know, produced and impresarioed and created events that were hip hop downtown for the last couple of years, maybe, you know, 10 or 15 different events by this point. I mean, that's people know me as that person. And I'm thinking, man, if I could turn Malcolm McLaren onto this movement, who, you know, is the one who brought punk to England and blew it up around the world, started in New York, by the way. He brought the Ramones and he brought television and the New York Dolls to England and turned them out. Didn't start in England. A lot of English people get pissed off at me at that, but sorry, it's the truth. And then, you know, he brought punk to England, blew it up around the rest of the world. And in the summer of '81, he is promoting and involved with New Romantics, which is like, you know, Adam Ant and Boy George and Culture Club and Bow Wow Wow and all these kind of like piratey kind of acts. And he's in town to promote this band called Bow Wow Wow. And they're going to perform at the Ritz, which is on East 11th Street in downtown Manhattan. And so I'm like hearing he's going to be at the party. I run to the party. Stan Peskett introduces me to him, says, "Yo, Michael's involved in this thing that's happening uptown." We didn't have a name for it. This is 1981. Didn't have a name for it. Called it Uptown.
So back then it was just like, it's this thing. He's involved with this thing. It was just this thing. That's crazy.
Malcolm McLaren he had left punk, and now he's promoting New Romantics. You know, Adam Ant, Boy George, that whole thing. And so I meet him, and my friend Stan, who went to school with him, says, Michael's involved with this movement that's up in the Bronx and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, what is it? And of course he's interested. I was already in the middle of interviewing and writing the article of Bambaataa for the East Village Eye that came out in '82. And I've had 3 other articles. I was one of the first hip hop journalists too. And I ran to a phone and called Bam, and I said, yo, Bam, are you doing any park jams in the next couple of days, because Malcolm was in town for at least a week or so. And he said, yeah, I'm doing one on Friday. It's like, perfect. So I go back to Malcolm at the party and I said, listen, what are you doing Friday night? Nothing. Boom. You're going to come with me up to the Bronx. I go to his hotel room Friday night. He's there with the A&R guy from RCA Records, and they were there. And that's what Bow Wow Wow was on, RCA Records. And they were there, like I said, to set up the show for Bow Wow Wow 3 months later in September at the Ritz. And this is like June, July. And so I go to pick them up. I'm dressed in like cut off jeans. This is the middle of the summer. No socks, Ked sneaker or Converse or Ked sneakers, nylon t-shirt, nylon tank top, little gold chain, sailor cap. And I'm like dressed to survive. I'm dressed in urban camouflage, right? I'm dressed to like blend in, and I get to their room and they're dressed like Boy George, like Pirates of the Penzance on acid. And I'm like, oh no, we're gonna get vicked. But I knew if I told him, you can't dress like that going up to the Bronx, he'd be like, don't you worry your pretty little American head. I'm English, we go around the world, we're intrepid Englishmen, and we can handle anything. I knew he would say that, so I didn't say anything. So we go to get a cab to go uptown. No cab will go up to the Bronx. We were going up to Bambaataa's project, which is Bronx River, and we finally get a car driven by a Puerto Rican woman who says, I live up there, and I'll drop you guys off. It'll be my last ride. So we go up there, and we get to Bronx River, and it's nighttime by this point, and all the street lights are shot out. It's dark, but there's nobody anywhere because they're all at the park jam, like literally 100 yards further inside all these projects, 30-story projects that are circling the community center, where Bambaataa's got his whole setup with Jazzy J, Ike C, Red Alert. Everybody's set up behind these ropes, throwing this party, and I'm like, just follow me, just come with me. I'm not telling Malcolm McLaren and Roy Johnston, who are dressed like pirates, Halloween pirates, that they're in mortal danger. And, pale red hair. I mean, it's like clowns on acid. It's so wild. And I'm taking them up, and and it's just like Joseph Conrad novel, Heart of Darkness in the Congo, where you hear these beats coming from these sound systems, bouncing off of the buildings and wafting through the buildings, just, and we're just walking towards there. Just follow me, stay with me. And we get there, and there's a sea of middle school, mostly boys, say 80% black, 75% black, 20% Puerto Rican, 5% white, poor white kids that were living up Bronx River. And they're middle school kids, and they're mostly boys, so they're fighting, they're dancing, fight breaks out, they all run over to see the fight, another fight breaks out, they run over to see people throwing bottles out the window, shut that music off. It's like Dante, the center circle of Dante's Inferno. It's wild, and I'm looking at Malcolm going, you're not so bad, are you? But I didn't, I was just thinking that. He's like, man, Michael, man, he's freaking out. I said, just come with me. We got to go behind the ropes. So we get behind the ropes. I introduce Malcolm to Bambaataa, and he's still freaking out. And I'm like, Bam, I put Jazzy on the turntables because Bam's just playing records. He's playing wild shit like Mary Mary by the Monkees. He's playing I Dream of Jeannie TV theme song, but he's playing Give It Up or Turn It Loose. He's playing Just Begun. He's playing he's playing everything. But this is all going over Malcolm's head. All he sees is Bronx madness, teenage kids going off. And I was always surprised that none of them ran up to us and like, who the hell are you? They didn't even bother. They were just in their own thing. So finally, Bam puts Jazzy on the turntables. And Jazzy starts like quick mixing and scratching and cutting up. Ike C was on the mic. And I'm like, see, Malcolm, That's like special mix DJing. That's all I knew to call it. And you know, Ike C's like rapping. That kid over there is breaking. And see, that's graffiti over there. This is so Malcolm was like, okay, I get it. I see. So let's get out of here. But I got an idea. We were never, he wasn't in danger, but it was just New York. And so we get in the cab, and on the way back home down the West Side Highway, I'll never forget it. He says, I'm going to give you $3,000, and I want you to put together a review of all these elements to open up for Bow Wow Wow September 14th, 1971 at the Ritz when we come back to New York. And I'm like, yes, I knew it was a breakthrough in hip hop culture. Now keep in mind, at the Stardust Ballroom, at the Disco Fever, rapping and DJing had been going on before I ever came to New York. I mean, it was going on years before, but not breaking, not graffiti. And so that night, when they all came back and I put the show together with Rocksteady, Bambaataa, Jazzy J, Ike C on the mic, and my film Catch a Beat, it was the first time that all the elements of hip hop had performed in front of a paying audience anywhere. And at that party, one of the new romantic kids was a girl named Ruza Blue, who was working for Malcolm McLaren at one of his shops, you know, one of his fashion shops where they sold these pirate clothes. And she came up to me and she said, I have this night at Negril, which is a Jamaican club, obviously, on 2nd Avenue and 12th Street, literally 5 blocks away from the Ritz. And I got this night that she had inherited from Cosmo Vinyl, who was the manager of The Clash. And you know, The Clash was in bed with Jamaica and Kingston and reggae and blah, 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 right? And so they were friends. So these Jamaicans who ran that club gave Cosmo Vinyl this night. Cosmo Vinyl, being the manager of The Clash, is too busy. So he gives that night to Ruza Blue. And Ruza Blue's doing, I presume, you know, new romantic events there every Thursday night. She said, would you bring your hip hop review, we didn't call it hip hop or whatever she called it, to my night at Negril? And the second time within months, I'm like, yes, a nightclub in which we could have all the elements of hip hop performing and appearing on a weekly basis. And so months later, in January of '82, because this all happened in September of '81. By January of '82, we got our shit together, and I had my Zulu Nation review throwdown with Bambaataa, Jazzy J, Ike C, and a number of the MCs. Ram LZ on doing a bunch of his 3-dimensional graffiti pieces all over the place. My film Catch a Beat, short film, but the first hip hop film, but not a feature film. I finished it in '81, had credits and everything, playing on all these monitors. And the whole crowd is like the downtown art crowd. Okay, sorry, I'm making this a long story, but it's interesting history. So Rocksteady performed for 30 minutes in the middle of this party that would last 4 or 5, 6 hours. And I said to Legs, and Legs and I were friends, you know, I was his agent at this stage. Yo, man, I want this crowd to see a battle. And I was introduced to Legs and to Rocksteady crew through the battle that happened only a few months before, a few months before, during the summer of '81 at Lincoln Center between Rocksteady and Dynamic from Queens, by the way.
There you go, Kel.
Yeah. And so that's how I met them. That's how I met Rocksteady, became their friends or whatever. And so I tried to get him to, you know, get another crew to battle Rocksteady so that the audience could see a battle. And, you know, Legs didn't want to do that because why would he give some other crew shine, right? But eventually he kind of gave in, and they had befriended this other crew called the Floor Masters at a battle at Kennedy High School in the Bronx, in a very interesting scenario where Rocksteady crew and the Floor Masters were going to battle, and ended up, because the Ball Busters, who hated, which is a Dominican gang who hated Rocksteady, ended up causing such a stir at this battle and at the gymnasium at one night on a weekend at Kennedy High School, that the whole school turned on both Rocksteady and the Floor Masters. And Rocksteady and the Floor Masters had to join forces to fight their way out, to save and run for their lives. So they befriended each other. So Legs is like, okay, I'll invite the Floor Masters down to battle us at Negril. He invites the Floor Masters down, and my mind's blown because as genius and as beautiful as Rocksteady danced, and as much style and musicality they had, the Floor Masters, part of the elements of the Floor Masters had power and speed and athleticism. And I was like, what is this? And FaZe was part of all this. You know, he made the flyers for the Negril parties. And we got this idea, like, what if we created an all-star team? Because at this stage, all breaking crews were just neighborhood collection of kids, right? And they were friends. And there'd be some dancers who were really good and some dancers who were, you know, so-so, and some dancers who weren't so strong, but they were homies, you know, and we were like, nah, forget that. We're gonna create an all-star team and raiding 2 and 3, 4 other crews from around all the boroughs of New York City to get the best power breakers and put together an all-star team that we called, actually FaZe 2 came up with the name, the New York City Breakers. And that's the long-winded answer to your question.
Yeah, it's crazy that the New York City Breakers was an all-star squad. Y'all was out here putting together all-star squads in the 80s. That's crazy.
Well, there was 3 or 4 from Floor Masters, one from Little Lep from Seven Deadly Sins, Flip Rock. I forget what crew he was from. He was from right around Lincoln Center. That's where he lived in Manhattan, Upper West Side. And Icy Ice or Corey Montalvo was from Dynamic, or he's definitely from Queens. I don't know if he was actually in Dynamic. He was in another crew. He performed in Beat Street with Fable, with the Magnificent Force. That's who he's with. So, you know, there's at least 3 different crews that made up parts of New York City Breakers, with the core coming from the Floor Masters.
That's crazy. It reminds me of this story in God, where is this book? Me and Porsche always talk about. It's about the Latin Quarters. Oh, that's ill. That's ill. That's dope. That's dope.
Dope.
New York City Breakers. That's dope. And I didn't know that Kane got like scrap from the dancers who used to be down at the Latin Quarters. You know, I'm just thinking Kane, Scoop, and Scrap all grew up in the same neighborhood, but Scrap or Scoop, they were like in a dancing crew that would always be down at the Latin Quarters. So it was just crazy that as a fan and as a kid, you're thinking that these things were just, you know, that's just, like you said, a group of friends, when it really was an all-star squad put together. That's crazy. Penny, slept on character from Beat Street.
Slept on character.
The character nobody really talks about.
Yeah, no. I'll go with Ray Donchan. I'll go with her. Nobody ever mentioned her. I know Michael did, but nobody really talks about her. And, you know, watching it again as an adult, well, I do remember watching it as a teenager, also, like, you know, watching a love story, like, you know, because I mean, she was dope. Everybody liked her. But watching it as an adult, I kind of, you know, you can see you can see the corny spots or whatever, but I like the love story there. You know what I mean? I liked it, and I definitely liked everything she did in the movie. She definitely, you know, as far as acting is concerned, yeah. So I'll take her.
All right, Ed, what about you? Who was slept on for you?
I got to give it to Moms, man. Mom was a slept on character for me. She was the one that she supported what they were doing. At the same point in time, she's like, don't be out too late because your brother gonna follow you being out so late. And that scene when she goes to pick up Lee out of the from the precinct, and how she just like, you know, rammed on a cop down there. It was like, you know, you, in order to really to do that kind of thing as an adult, you need a mother that's going to support you that way. So I got to give it to Mom.
That's a dope thing.
Kill, are you gonna you're making a tape of all this? This is like a recording, right?
Yeah.
No, I gotta have this tape. This is crazy.
Oh yeah. Say less,
this
bro.
Is so fucking
it's funny,
brilliant, man.
It's funny because the moms, you know, I say that, I use that line all the time. Where do you think you got your gallon talent from? You know what I mean? Like I say that to Nate all the time. Like, where do you think you got your gallon talent from? Or eat them eggs before I break your legs. Like, I mean, there's just so many spots. How many quotables Mom Duke says, you know, and it was great to see her go on in a different world and just do amazing things after that too. Veg, what about you? Who's the slept on character for you?
I had Moms down. Like, you know, this was something I wasn't used to, right? Because all the adults around us was like, turn that shit down and what y'all doing and blah, blah, blah. And she was supportive of what they were doing. So it was something I had never seen before from someone from a different generation, not only supporting their kids, obviously, but also just supporting what they were doing, even though it wasn't a mainstream thing that was guaranteed money and success. It was just a culture they were into. So it was dope to see a Black mother raising boys like that and being not only aware of her children and their goals, but the environment they operated in. So,
well, if I could jump in on that, it's amazing in what you're saying, because there, of course, if you study her lines and everything, there is a reluctance on her part to embrace
because the older brother.
Because the older brother had succumbed to the gangs. But she's reluctantly supportive and then comes around. And the reason why I think that's so fascinating is because we kind of threaded the needle with that character. We had her both as the questioning parent figure, but also supportive and beautiful. And that's, by the way, you remember what film the mother she played in another really important film, The Education of Sonny Carson. Yo, right. Yo, Brooklyn, baby. Remember that? She was Education of Sonny Carson. Anyway, Kelv, I think, is going to jump in now, right?
Yeah, Kelv, who's your slept-on character?
I'm like Penny. I got Radon Chong. She's, again, I like the supportive characters, so I was easy in the eyes too. But yeah, just the support. She saw interest in Lee first, and she saw interest in Kenny. So I thought, I like the character for that. But she's not the main part. But yeah.
I got to jump in on Ray.
Please do.
Radon Chong. Are you aware of whose daughter she is?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Tommy Chong, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Tommy Chong is half white and half Chinese, right?
Right.
So do you know a band called Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers?
No.
They did a song called "Does Your Mother Know About Me? Does Your Mama Know About Me? Does your mama know about me? Ooh, does you know just what I am?" You never heard of this song?
Nah.
Okay, so this was like huge in San Francisco because there was so much race mixing and everything. And it's this cat saying, "Does your mother know about me? Does she know just who I am? Will she turn her back on me, or will she accept me as a man? And what about your dad? Do you care what people say?" And Bobby Taylor is black, and he's got this two-tone band behind him, and Tommy Chong is guitar player in this band. And for years, I always thought, oh, this is like a brother singing to his white girlfriend saying, "Does your mother know about me? Because I'm black, is she going to accept me as a man?" It turns out that the person who wrote the song was Tommy Chong, and he's this half white, half Chinese guy singing to a black girl saying, "Does your mother know about me?" And Radon Chong is the product of that song.
That's crazy.
Wow.
But you need to hear the song. Now everybody watching needs to
Bobby Taylor?
It's on YouTube.
You said Bobby Taylor?
Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers from Vancouver, from Canada.
I used to see him at a shop in Santa Monica. I don't know if he still has that shop at Bergamot Station.
Who's that?
Tommy Chong? Yeah.
He's the one who discovered that band. Either him or Bobby Taylor discovered the Jackson 5.
Oh shit!
Not Dinah Ross.
Wow.
Now here's the funny thing about Radon Chong. I'm watching the movie last night. I've always wondered this. I felt Lee was one of the underperforming people in the Roxy scene, but she gave the number to him. Like there's at least 6 other breakers on the New York City Breakers, on the B Street Breakers that could have got the number. So I was always like, but I mean, it was just, it's nothing deep, but I just was always like,
he's the dancing main character. First of all, by this point in 84 or 83, 84, the New York City Breakers and Rocksteady had been, on television performing for kings and queens. They're professionals. And I'll tell you the truth, sometimes, even to this day, I think, how did these teenage kids, these black and Puerto Rican teenage kids from the Bronx, from the Boogie Down, from Manhattan, poor working class single mothers, how did they perform for kings, queens, and presidents the way they did, flawlessly, professionally, without mistakes? Just, I mean, I can't. I mean, you know, I choreographed most of their and directed most of their performances, but you look at some of these performances on tape, when most of them are on tape, and you think you're looking at like 25-year-old professional dancers. These are street kids, and they held it down. They held it down. But to your point about Lee, the battle was the reason why you all love the battle scene is because it's probably the most real moment in the film. It was the most like shockingly real, no acting, no Hollywoodization of.
And it was one take, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you about that. That's kind of fascinating too. So at the battle, what you would normally do, if Lee was the person that you would think he was, looking at it from an audience's point of view, Ray giving him her number and all that, he would have gone out first. But they weren't going to let that happen. New York City Breakers was like, no, you're not going out first. That's going to be that's powerful Pex. Pex is going out first. You go out last. You're not going out first. So that was going on behind the cameras, right? That was going on. So you asked about what was the
just kind of like how did they take him in? Because like Ev just said, he's the one who's like, yo, let's do the right thing. Let's serve these dudes. Like he looked like he was the leader, even when he came into the party in the beginning. Like he came in on his dolo joint, did the Us Girls, so it seemed like he was the leader of the crew.
Yeah, I mean, the New York City Breakers, all the guys were like, yo, we're actors here. We're not the New York City Breakers. We're the Beat Street Breakers. We're actors. He's written in the script. That's cool. As long as when it's time to battle, we can just go off. Wow. And they were happy. They didn't mind. And they liked Lee. Lee got on with everybody, and they're still friends. I don't know if he's going to like me now after I busted him, but no, we're all friends. They all liked him. It's just the battle was too real for him to be too deep into it. To come out first. That wasn't going to happen.
And before we skip ahead, he was nice regardless. Let's not.
He was nice.
Yeah, he was nice. I mean, but when he did,
he was nice.
Thank you, Penny. You're right.
He came out, swipe, footwork, backspin, and that was it. And it's kind of like everybody else is doing. It's almost like the Olympic team dunking threes from the logo, and then like here come Kill just doing a quick little layup. Like, yeah, I did a little dribble, a little layup, but when you looking at everything else that happened, it was always like, wow, like, so I just always want to, again, these are questions from a 10-year-old kid that have been sitting in my soul for 40 years. So
I love that.
You know what I mean? That. Like, I mean, it really is. So
I love that.
Let's do this. So let's go here for a minute. We're gonna kind of go over. The crazy thing is I'm on Twitter and people are saying, everybody sent me Kill, Beat Street on Broadway, Beat Street on Broadway, Beat Street on Broadway. And I'm not gonna hold you. My first response is like, ugh. Okay. How is this gonna go? How is this gonna go? Because, and again, I'm 50. I've just really started going to plays and doing more Broadway stuff like that. So I don't know if this is the first time hip hop has been done on Broadway. I do know it's the first time that like a cult classic film about hip hop is going to Broadway. So my first reaction is, I don't know. Then I hear Nas's name is associated with it. That gives me a little relaxation. You know what I mean? And I'm like, all right, cool. You know what I mean? And then it's funny, I got to shout out my man Eddie from Twitter, who actually threw the alley-oop for you, Michael, because he hit me. He's like, Kill, you out. Everybody I know on Twitter, you love Beat Street the most. My man is working with Nas on this joint, is out. I can let the cat out the bag, everything like that. How did this idea even come to bring Beat Street to Broadway?
Well, Arthur Baker and I, about 8 years ago, were like, wow, we should bring this to Broadway. We should just bring this to Broadway. It would just be a wild idea. And I think initially we were talking to Gina Belafonte, who's Harry Belafonte's daughter, and she had an opportunity to do something in the park, in Central Park, And we had all been talking about, well, what if we took like a moment from Beat Street or whatever? Because just Gina Belafonte was in Beat Street too. She was one of the dancers, one of the kids. She was one of like Ray Don Chong's friends, you know, one of her homies. And one of the modern dancers, which we won't have any modern dancing in Beat Street on Broadway, by the way. There'll be a lot of things that will be missing and a lot of things that will be added. But that didn't work out. And Arthur and I were like, yo, let's just like continue this idea. And we just started plugging away and talking to people. And, you know, we first went to MGM, and, you know, MGM owned Orion Pictures Library, and they didn't even know they owned Beat Street. They didn't know what it was.
Wow.
It was like, wow, this is crazy. And so that wasn't easy. But then we found, just like you guys, this kid who is a man, he's going to turn 50 this October, named Richard Fern, English, white boy from England, from London, who was 10 when he saw Beat Street for the first time and got turned out, became a b-boy, hardcore b-boy, good enough to compete and to perform. And when he found out later on, because now he's a big investor, a tech investor, when he found out about 6 years ago what we were doing, through Arthur Baker's ex-wife, actually, who's a big entertainment attorney, or a big attorney in London now, from you know, she was in Beat Street, you know, oh God, oh, she's gonna kill me now. She was in the audition scene, and she's
in at the Roxy.
At the Roxy, yeah.
The one who's singing?
Yeah.
The shorty who's singing?
Yeah.
Brenda K. Starr or something like
that?
Not
Brenda K. Starr. No, not Brenda K. Starr. Anyway, it'll come to me. Anyway, we met Richard in London. Arthur had lived in London for years. You know, Arthur Baker did all the music for Beat Street. You know, he's the producer, legendary producer for you know, Bambaataa and Planet Rock.
Planet Rock, man.
And a lot of other dance tracks, hip hop dance tracks. And so, you know, he sort of looked at my creds and my credentials, and looked at his own creds and credentials, which I think are a lot more dramatic, a lot more substantial than mine. But anyway, he was like, yo, we'd be a dynamite team. And so then we found Richard Fern, and now we had some money and we had some support. And then fast forward to a year or so ago, a year and a half ago, we're struggling with you know, studios and Hollywood, and them not really understanding what we want to do and really making it hard for us and whatever. And we just happened to be watching, somebody happened to be watching, wasn't us, Comedy Central, the whatever show with Trevor Noah. Daily Show. And Trevor Noah's got Nas on the show. He's like interviewing him, and he says to Nas, and they're talking about film, not about really hip hop, but just film, because Nas is a really big film freak, you know. And he says, just out of the blue, what's your favorite film? And like I said, they weren't talking about hip hop. And he said, you know, Beat Street. And when we found out that he said that, and then we found it on YouTube and everything, just all the alarm bells went off. And we did everything we could to get to him, and we did. And it took about a year, but we eventually brought him into the fold. And now it's me, Arthur Baker, Richard Fern, and Nas.
That's amazing.
4 of us producing Beat Street. He's like a Broadway producer now for the first time, and so are we. We've never done. But to your point, Kill, about, yo, Broadway, are you sure about this? You know, taking hip hop to Broadway. We've never done Broadway. I've never really been a big fan of Broadway. I've never been a big fan of, you know, breaking out into song and that kind of music and singing that you see on Broadway, that, you know, that kind of corny stuff that you see on Broadway. But Arthur and I, we've always known, first of all, we saw this incredible, Broadway or not, Broadway film, whatever, we saw this incredible opportunity to do the things for Beat Street with 20/20 hindsight, knowing where hip hop is today and all the things that it did, not knowing any of those things in '84. We didn't know where it would be in 30, 40 years, if hip hop would still be around. Knowing what we know today, knowing what we know today about the history of hip hop, about what hip hop was doing at the time, and the idea of not being under the thumb of the Hollywood people and doing it our way as producers, having someone like Nas on our side, being able to have like classic B-boy break songs, you know, like The Mexican, Just Begun, Give It Up, Turn Loose. Can you imagine that shit on Broadway?
Yes.
Yes, you can. So can I. And we were like, what if we did this, like, not ignoring the typical aesthetic that is on Broadway, which we all know what that looks like, and doing it as if it was like from the street, with the sound and with actors and dance and drama and narratives that would appeal to you all, as well as the tourists from Sweden and from South Africa and from Brazil that come and basically populate the audiences of all Broadway plays. Because guess what? They all know what Beat Street is too. They all were 10-year-olds who saw Beat Street mostly on videotape for the first time too. And so we thought, this is like a no-brainer. This is like a no-brainer. And we've been grinding for 8 years. And you ask a lot of people who do Broadway plays, it usually takes 8, 9, 10 years to get them on. But hopefully that answers it a little bit. Every song, imagine you're in the theater and it's just every song is boom bap. Or the love songs are Tower of Power, you know, You're Still a Young Man. It's like that feeling.
Right.
The ballads are like the ballads are as if they were done by the Ohio Players or Delphonics. You guys are too young to know what that means. No. I'm just playing. I'm playing.
These records behind me, bro. Vague, you had a question, bro.
So with everything that you said, one thing was coming to mind. Do you think it makes it even easier to bring something so authentic like Beat Street to Broadway because of the success of a show like Hamilton, which used hip hop and became extremely popular? But this is hip hop. So, like, what are your feelings about that? Do you feel like that makes it even easier?
Simple answer is yes. Yes. I mean, Hamilton is not a hip hop story, but it uses rap, 70% of the time.
Right.
It skillfully, and it's one of the better plays or musicals in many, many years. It could have used rap and still not been good,
Right.
What's really interesting is who am I thinking? I'm sorry, man. The guy who brought Hamilton.
I can think of his name.
Damn.
Manuel?
Manuel.
Lin-Manuel?
Lin-Manuel Miranda. He when the first wave of publicity came out for Hamilton, he was quoted in the New York Times saying, "My sister took me to see Beat Street and I got turned out. And I just wanted to be a rapper and blah, blah, blah." And when we saw that, we were just doing research and we saw that, we were like, "Oh, this is great. Let's go find, Lin-Manuel, and tell him what we're doing." And, it didn't get us very far, but then later on find out that Lin-Manuel Miranda is good friends with Nas. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Can I just all right, so I'm an actor. I work on stage, but I don't sing. I've never sung. I've done plays in the city here for, the better part of the last 20 years. But even though I've always been turned off on musicals, as soon as Kill sent me that, obviously my, adoration of the movie has something to do with it. But I could see it immediately and hear it immediately. And I'll say this, outside of the hip hop effect and celebrating 50 and, awareness now and how many people love it, I think Broadway, as it is, it's kind of ripe for different shit now because it's just been doing the same old shit. So every season, there's something like right over here. I was in one of those off-Broadway joints that got bumped up before, My buddy of mine is doing something now that's probably going to get pulled up, you know, something that has that different element. I mean, and this is like something that has a different element with steroids and like $1 billion in a Bugatti, like on fire, you know, racing downhill. Because there's so much in it, not just the meat of Beat Street, but, you know, you're bringing in Nas and whomever else you're going to bring. And you're telling us now it's not going to be the same Beat Street. You know, you're going to bring the Beat Street, like the one that you wanted to see, that we wanted to see.
To begin with.
Yeah.
To begin with. Yeah. Precisely, Penny. Precisely.
I think it's ready for that, man. I'm so happy you guys are doing it. Think about what I mean, you know, of course, you know, we worked really hard and we wanted to be successful like any producers would. And we wanted to represent, I want my friends, I want my sister Sha Rock and Lisa Lee and Debbie D. I want Kaz, I want Mo and Special K and LA Sunshine. I want all those cats. You know, I want DXT. I want all those cats to be able to say, yo, Michael, you know, you guys did it. You did it. You know, you captured our souls on the stage. And I know that that's not going to happen if you got some like corny singers going, you know, you know, and doing this kind of, you know, corny thing that is expected on Broadway. We're going to have to be bold and say, nah, we're not doing that. We're going to trust the audience, even if it's some tourist from you know, some middle class, middle-aged tourist from Portugal or from the Netherlands or from, you know, Mexico City or from Wichita, Kansas, that when they show up and the feeling is like when I took Malcolm McLaren up to Bronx River and he heard that through that lens, through that earplug, that they're going to go, this is scary and different, but this is dope. Wait, I got to tell my daughter to come see this. I got to tell my cousin to come see this. That's what I'm counting on. I'm not soft. I have no interest in soft pedaling this for an audience so that they can get it. They know what hip hop is. Hell yeah.
Come on.
Hey.
I just want to add one last thing. I think to what we were all saying about being kids and being inspired and enamored with everything we saw, I think this is a perfect opportunity for a real hip hop lesson in New York City, where tourists can feel like this is an authentic trip as opposed to just entertainment. You know what I mean? Like this is coming from New York City.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I know what you're going to say. Please elaborate on that.
Yeah, because I mean, when you think about where hip hop is today, I think, and this was going to be one of my later questions, but you know, it's sort of an identity crisis. And I think when we had the 50th year of hip hop, we got to feel hip hop again. And some of it is happening this year with like Pete Rock and Common and things like that. So we're starting to feel the roots of hip hop again. And I think Beat Street is not as well known, at least in history, not us, but at least in history, as one of those movies. You know, you kind of think about Crush Groove and then whatever else. Right. But I think it's an opportunity because it's New York City, because it's this education piece, to be honest, that not only some of us can go and see a different version, a more authentic version of Beat Street, but people who are aware of hip hop can learn about the roots, about the culture, where it started, who was there. It can end all these debates. Puerto Ricans started, blacks start. It can end all that shit all in one show and still be entertaining at the same time, which, you know, that's when Tony Award season comes up and, you know, everybody get to do their thing. But I really think it could be so much more impactful on Broadway, and I think it's an excellent idea. So.
Thank you very much. And you know, you touch on something that I've been pushing with my partners and everything. Just, you know, besides doing the ideal Beat Street, to educate, educate. Was it entertain? Yeah, ARS1. Yeah, to entertain or educate or educate. Edutained. Sorry, everybody. But as much as possible, Vega, as much as possible to do what you were saying without hitting them over the head, without belaboring the issues, to do it seamlessly. That's our challenge. But yes, to not only entertain them with hip hop, but to educate them as as much as we can. We can't give them the whole pie. We can, because you can imagine that where hip hop came from. If you took it as a pie, most people only know a little slice anyway.
Right.
There's the piece came, from the Ghetto Brothers, and Yellow Benji and Black Benji, and allowing, then there's there's the Jamaican there's the Jamaican sound systems. There's a million different origin stories. I'll tell you one origin story that will not be missed, that will not be left out, is the fact that, in my opinion, hip hop stands on the shoulders of Mr. James Brown in so many ways. And that's a message that I really want to get across as well.
Right. Now tell me this, because one of the things I was thinking about when Nas came into the fold, it was an article I read by the Trackmasters, and they were saying the pressure that they felt having to produce. It was written. How do you follow up? Illmatic, one of the greatest hip hop albums of all time, one that many people say is the greatest hip hop album of all time. And then it was the Trackmasters at the time, who were almost like hip hop's antichrist at the time. Like, these dudes just loop up whatever 80s hit is banging, and the pressure behind it. Do you feel any pressure? I mean, I know you're one of the original people from the movie, but there still could be pressure felt. Do you feel, going into this, do you feel any pressure of, not fucking up the original?
Well, I absolutely feel pressure, as you would feel pressure on any project that you want it to be great, and you should have that pressure, or if it's easy, no pain, no gain. And of course, there's pressure in order just to do a good job as any musical. Right. There's pressure to keep authentic, to work with the director, to work with the writer, to work with actors, to make sure you get that message across as producers. The pressure of authentically coming from the original film, there's no pressure there. For me, I'm like chomping at the bit to tell it the way I wish I could have told it back then. I can't wait to get to that. I'll tell you where there's a little bit of pressure, and I feel it talking to you guys, you young kids of today with gray beards left, right, and center. The little bit of pressure I feel, and this is fascinating, is when you guys talked about, the mother was such a fascinating, Lee was such a fascinating character, Ramo dying on the track, blah, 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 all these things that meant so much to you that for me, I wasn't thinking about back then. I was just thinking about, making sure the scene worked, getting people to show up on time. I was just being an associate producer and a talent wrangler and fighting with Harry and David and trying to get it to be more authentic, blah, blah, blah. When I'm hearing you guys, I'm going, some of these things that I thought were kind of not authentic or corny or whatever touched you guys as kids in a way that I didn't appreciate as much as I do now in this moment. And that's blowing my mind. So there's a little bit of pressure of me appreciating what you're saying and saying, how much of this, sorry to interrupt you, Kill. How much of this is sentimentality and memories from those days that I should really consider and hold on to? And how much of it is just, how much of it is really strong characters that moved you as an audience then and now? Because you guys have the money to go to the theater, to pay tickets to come and see it, as people your age do around the world. How much of it do I have to listen to and really consider? And how much of it can I update and change without losing you and doing something even better? There's a lot to juggle with, but we have a lot of, we have a good team. But anyway, sorry, go ahead, Phil.
No, I was gonna say, it's funny. Me and Dante Ross, who I call the good A&R. Yeah,
oh shit.
Yeah. We when last time I was in LA, me and Ev hung out with Dante out there. He took us around, and we were talking one time on Twitter. He was like, B Street wasn't authentic. I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, Dante, he was like, yo, we was doing this. I said, bro, you gotta understand, I'm younger than you, number one. Right. You know what I mean? So I didn't see Wild Style. You know, like you're literally telling me you were doing the tags. I wasn't. I was a kid, you know, so I'm always, even when I'm trying to teach the younger generation about hip hop, I'm always saying age plays a huge part in everything. You know what I mean? And I think for me, like you said, like something that maybe you didn't think was authentic, but to a 10-year-old kid in Philly, you know, because then I'm like, Dante, you were in New York. I wasn't in New York. Like, so you kind of have to like look at the different things.
Great point.
And you know, after we started talking, it's like, okay, Kill, I see what you're saying. Because I'm like, if you're 16 and I'm 10, like, dog, we in two different worlds right now, dog. I'm still playing with Transformers. You probably trying to get some ass somewhere. Like, we're in two different worlds right now. When you're in New York City, in the heart of it, I'm in Philly going to a private school at the time. So you got to understand how, like, for my age, Beat Street meant so much to us. And then again, I didn't see Wild Style till later. Right. Maybe if I did see Wild Style first, we may be having a completely, totally different conversation than what we're having right now. But because I didn't, so I think that's the thing. Like, I know for me, when me and Dante were going back and forth, I was like, bro, I don't know what you're talking about. That shit was authentic to the core. You know what I mean? Like, for me, now, when you want to talk about something that's not authentic, I was watching Breaking 2 with Naomi last night for shits and giggles. That's not authentic, okay? Like, you know, turbo dance on the roof of the ceiling, you know, that's not authentic. But for me as a 10-year-old, to me as a 50-year-old, I can't think of one scene in the movie, at least for me, that I ever felt like, nah, that's not authentic. You know what I mean? As far as authentic hip hop, because again, that was part of my foundation. Yeah. You know, so I always tell people it's about how you were raised. Some people are raised to be very polite. Some people are raised differently. It's what you were raised on. And Beat Street raised me. So everything from when you're saying Phase 2 name, the first thing that pops in my head is when Rainbow spray paint. He's like, man, don't go over that Phase 2. Like, like that. Those are like the things that just is like part of my foundation of hip hop. So I mean, that's for me. And I'm interested, and I also have to keep in mind that going into something new is being open-minded enough as a fan to see what you're going to bring to the table now and not hold it against what the original movie was, you know. And I think that's something I struggle with. Like Veg, everybody with this Common album, you know, I'm like, yo, this shit better be better than B. And I'm like, but that's not fair for me to say it better be better than B, or it's not getting me as excited as B got. Like, I have to accept it for what Common and Pete Rock are doing right now, you know. And sometimes it's hard for me to get away from that. I know that's one of my hangups, but I think that's one of the things for anybody going out to see this movie, I mean, seeing the play, is being open-minded enough to understand what you're about to see, and that you are going to be pulling from new things. And that, you know, I had no idea that the movie we saw wasn't the movie that you wanted us to see, you know. So that's news I'm sure to everybody up here, like that the finished product wasn't what you wanted. Kel, what you got?
I was gonna say, I mean, Nas is in our age group, so you know he's a year older than us. So I think he's in the same. He's gonna have probably, I'm thinking, the same mindset as you, Kel. You know, as far as what you saw is what he saw too. And obviously, I mean, I think if you look at all his products he's done with Masterfield, I think most of the stuff is very authentic to the core. So
no. I mean, everything from the Supreme Team. That's why when I heard Nas's name, I was like, okay, I could calm down a little bit, because you know, I know it's a little bit.
Can you imagine how, if I can just shout out to Nas, I mean, can you imagine how Arthur and I were like, Nas loves Beat Street, the film. That means we even have half a chance to reach out to him and see if he wants to join our team. I mean, you know, when I look at MCs, when I listen to Nas's music and that album, Illmatic, and the second out, his sophomore album and everything, you're listening to it. To me, he's the Basquiat of hip hop. He's the intellectual. He's the artist. I mean, the true artist. And the fact that he's on our team, just I still sometimes pinch myself that this is happening. You know, there could have been a lot of big names involved. Probably, you know, MCs who would have like controlled everything and kind of kicked us to the curb. And that's not who Nas is, man. He's respectful to us. He understands what we're trying to do. We hear what he's trying to do. We have meetings where I was like saying, yeah, man, we're going to have like, you know, we're going to just definitely have the Mexican and Just Begun in there and all. And he was like lighting up, like, yeah, like I could just see, oh man, he's part of us. Even though he was 10 years old, and younger, when, you know, people like me were bringing hip hop downtown and, you know, and getting involved in the game as adults, he knows and knew what those markers were and those songs were that the b-boys were breaking to, not just the rappers, but the songs that rappers were making, but hip hop songs, not rap songs. He understands all the nuances, and we are just so lucky, not because he's massive, but because he's so smart and he's so sophisticated and he's such a kind and considerate, and God, I really like him a lot. I don't know him well. We've only had a couple of meetings, but he's really special. I have to tell you, he's really special. He is all the things that you think he is when you hear his music. And when you hear things like at the opening of the sophomore album, and he's like, it's a slave, 18th century, 19th century scenario, and people are rebelling, and it's so smart. And the way he leaves record scratches in the track, or the way that he, the type of beats and samples that he uses, it's so smart, and yet he's not been pushed aside by this new generation. He's still the king. He's still king. It's amazing. It's and one thing I want to say, shout out to Dante Ross. I'd like to say we're boys, and he doesn't suffer fools, man. He is an exacting critic. He knows what he likes. He knows what's corny, man. Oh man, he is rough. He's hard to please, but I'd like to say that when we get Beats on Broadway and get him in the front row, and he's gonna walk away and go, yeah, that was dope. Yo, that was dope. You guys rocked it. So
that's dope.
We're gonna be watching for you, Dante.
Yeah, we definitely getting that. The great part about Nas too is Vague grew up with Nas. Vegas' cousin is Ill Will, who was Nas's people. So that's Vegas' cousin. So he was always in the projects.
Dougie's DJ? Dougie Fresh's DJ?
Nah, Ill Will. Nas's best friend. Everything is Ill Will. Now that's Chill Will. That's
Chill Will. I'm sorry. Chill Will. Sorry about that.
Ill Will is like every Nas has shot it out. Ill Will since halftime. Since every song. So Vague grew up with them in Queensbridge and everything like that. Vegas from Brooklyn. Don't get it twisted. But I got you, Vague. I'm not gonna put you out there. But he spent time in Queensbridge. I got you, bro. I got you. Now,
let me just add one thing real quick. A lot of the park jams I experienced was in Queensbridge Housing Projects Park across the street early on. And to your point, it was just kids. Even in the 80s, it was just us and music. So those are dope times I cherish.
All the grown-ups were like, I don't want to go to that hippie hip-hop shit out in the park, in the dirt and the sand and I don't want to go to that. I want to go downtown and wear shoes and go to Club Studio 54 or go to Bonds, go do some grown-up stuff. And a lot of people have this fantasy about New York in the early 80s in Bronx. It wasn't like that. It was kids, middle school kids. They were the engine that drove hip hop culture.
That's dope.
No question.
Dope. Here's something else I loved about the movie, man, because you guys put me on to a lot of old school hip hop. And I always say that me being 50, I didn't know a lot about the Treacherous 3. I didn't know about the Funky 4 plus one more, because I'm coming into hip hop at 10. It's Run DMC, Houdini, the Fat Boys, So the thing I loved about B Street is we had Treacherous 3 in there. We had Kool Moe Dee with no glasses. That's why I didn't even know it was Kool Moe Dee in the beginning, because I ain't never seen him without his glasses on.
That's true. So, I never thought of that.
It was like, yo, that's Moe Dee. You had the System in there with Don't Disturb This Groove, which is one of my favorite songs of all time, and the System is in the movie. From Queens, right?
I didn't know that.
I told he's gonna be a way to get Queens in here. He's gonna find a way. You had Dougie Fresh. The first time I ever heard Dougie Fresh. You know what I'm saying? At a time when the only beatbox that I knew was Buffy, the human beatbox. And what I always loved about Buff and Doug is they had two completely different styles. Yeah. So the fact that we had Dougie Fresh, this is the first time I'm seeing Kool Herc. This is the first time I'm seeing Melly Mel. This is the first time I'm seeing Jazzy J. This is the first time I'm seeing Sha Rock. You know what I mean? So It's
Lisa
not
Lee,
just,
Debbie D.
yeah, Lisa. I mean, like, so you guys are like, that movie introduced me, and I'm sure millions of other people, to these staples in hip hop. Like, these weren't actors. Like, it's not like you had somebody playing Kool Moe. You like, so Africa Bam, the Soul Sonic Force. Like, you know what I mean? So you guys put so much into that. It was, you know, I just want to shout that out because, you know, again, it put me onto that. Like, I wanted to be Jazzy J. You know, when as soon as Bam goes off and Jazzy J starts scratching, it's like, yo, Kenny, come on up. Like, he like, Jazzy J. Like, you can see, I know every damn scene out the movie. But it's like, you know, like, yeah, like, I wanted to be Jazzy J. Like, you know, so, I mean, just so much dope stuff. Now, here's a question I got, because I saw this on somewhere, too. Did Ramo's name come from Samos, who was Basquiat? Is that true?
I don't know. It's possible. I never thought. I don't think so, but it's possible. Ramo, Samo. Yeah, maybe. Okay, I hope not, but possible.
His name was Ramon, though. I don't know.
Well, they called him Ramo and then Ramon. I know. You know, I was like, was it Ramo? Was it Ramon? I would see the tag being Ramo. I was like, oh snap! It was both, I guess. That's funny. I just got a shout out, man. I helped discover Dougie Fresh, got him on first downtown and did his first music video, and I managed Us Girls.
Wow.
I managed Us Girls.
Oh, what?
Paris.
You managed Us Girls?
I managed them, yeah.
Yo.
So
how did you discover Dougie Fresh? Like, where was he at?
Well, I didn't discover him, but through people who were trying to get him up, knew me or met me, I forget how, and they said, you got to meet this cat. And so I went up to the Bronx and would see him perform, brought him downtown and had him perform at the School of Visual Arts, doing his beatboxing. So I'm the first person to put him on film or on tape. Then I made his music video, All the Way to Heaven. I directed and produced that. Wow, there's a story when I went up with my boy from Gray, Nick Taylor, DJ High Priest. We went up to the Bronx to see him at Stardust Ballroom, and there was a big riot that I almost caused. It was wild, and we were all trying to get out, and black spades were beating the shit out of people as they were trying to escape up the stairs. We went up there dressed like we was like kind of a Run DMC with, like, you know, fedoras and Italian knit sweaters, looking like hard so that we wouldn't get jumped, you know. And Nick is a white boy, you know. I'm light skinned, and he's got like a goatee. He looked cool. We looked dope. We looked kind of fresh. Went in between cars on the way up in the subway and smoking a joint. A cop comes by and says, "Yo, put that out." I mean, that was the beginning of the trip. We get off, and I forget what stop it was, Gun Hill Road or something. And as we're walking along, people are like getting out of our way because we're walking along trying to be confident, looking cool. And I hear these people say, "Yo, man, Cuban assassins, they're Cuban assassins." And we're like, shit, they think we're like murderers, man. Let's like keep up the act, right? So we get to the club, and in the middle of the night, Dougie got into this altercation with the bartender. This female was a bartender. Her brother ran the club. This is the Stardust Ballroom. And before you know it, Dougie is in this beef with the club owner or manager, and LA Sunshine, who I didn't even know was LA Sunshine until years later when I told the story in LA Sunshine. That was me. LA Sunshine pushes Dougie aside and says, "Yo, man, it's cool. What's going on? What's the problem?" And the owner, the manager of the club, and I'll never forget, it was a summer, and he had on a winter sweater. And he had his hand behind his back. He had a Colt 45 behind his back. And I'm standing there kind of like from downtown, you know, what's going on? You know, kind of innocent college boy from California. And I look behind his back and I see this Colt 45, and he pulls it out. And as he's bringing the handle down on LA Sunshine's forehead, it's so loud, it sounded like a gunshot. And I turned to Nick. We're both from downtown. I said, "Nick, he's got a gun." And I said, "Run." And the whole club like panicked. And we're climbing, trying to get out. And it's upstairs to get out of a Stardust Ballroom. And outside this glass door are a bunch of black spades. And they had silver Nazi helmets, the bike. And they're beating the shit out of people, falling back downstairs. I'm trying to climb and get out. And I'll never forget the sister who was there, also trying to escape, looking out over at me and says, "Oh, you're not so bad." I was like, "No, I'm not bad. I'm not bad." But that was the big adventure with Dougie Fresh, man. I'll never forget that. He knows the story too. Ask Dougie, ask LA Sunshine. They'll tell you the story when Michael Holman caused a panic at the Stardust Ballroom in 1982. Yeah.
Bro, it's amazing. Your memory's so good. I can't remember stuff half the time. That's amazing right there. Now let me ask you this. I'm on YouTube and I see a trailer for Beat Street that I've never seen before. And it has all these scenes in it that are not in the movie. So I'm wondering how much stuff got left on the floor. There's a scene where Henry, who is the Marine, Penny, is like sitting at the counter between these two big black guys. Then there's this scene where Kenny Ramo and Special K come out the bar and they run into these two tall black guys.
I saw that, yeah.
It's like break dances in a classroom, like they're in school battling. And I'm like, yo, like, was there a lot of stuff left on the floor or something?
Well, that's true of every film. There's going to have tons of stuff that's left on the cutting room floor that just you either don't have room for it, or it doesn't advance the story, and it gets cut out. It's just the way any film is. I did want to talk about, because you brought it up earlier, and I never got a chance to talk about it. And it's 8 o'clock. My wife is probably in another part of the apartment, going like, "I'm hungry, and you got to finish this up."
Right. I got you, bro.
And maybe we can. I'm happy to revisit this another time. Yeah. But the battle scene, which again I think is so powerful and the most memorable moment in the film, because it was a real battle. At this stage in '83, going into '84, the New York City Breakers had stolen a lot of Rocksteady Crew's Thunder. They would have been the most important crew in the world. They absolutely were, from Flashdance on. The most important, most famous crew in the world, and then all of a sudden New York City Breakers come along and steal a lot of their thunder, and so there's this competition between the two crews as to who's number one, right? And it makes sense that they would have this, and then there's everybody in the crews, they know each other, and there's this friendly rivalry, enmity, anger, competition, and so Stan Lathan, who had taken over from Andy Davis when he was fired. Funny enough, Andy Davis maybe got fired, but he went on to direct The Fugitive with Harrison Ford, so he wasn't a slouch, but he wasn't really the right person to direct that film. But anyway, Stan Lathan was smart enough to come to me and say, "Yo, Michael, I know you've been involved with, breaking performances on television for years now. Like, how do you think I should do this?" And I said, "Listen, this is a real battle. You're not going to be able to like say, okay, cut, move the camera, change the lights, let's take number two." So it's not going to work. They won't be able to sustain what they feel right now. This competitiveness, this anger, this feeling of like, who are you to take our place? Who are you to stop us from getting up? We're better. We're the better. This real, true competitiveness that is the essence of hip hop really can't be done again and again and again. You have to do this in one take. And if you're going to do this in one take, because I was a filmmaker at this stage already, you need to do this with 5 different cameras from 5 different angles and light for all 5 cameras. A camera from far away, a camera from close up, a camera from low angle, a camera from high angle, give us 5 different angles and shoot it in one take. And that's exactly what they did. And that's exactly why that scene cuts like butter, because every cut that you go to and come from is the same take. So you can't mess up. They're wearing the same thing. They're doing the same move. It's just from a different angle. It's going to cut like butter. And that was I give myself that credit of second unit directing of that battle scene. And believe me, at the time we made it, if we had known it would have been the most important scene in the whole film, would have been smarter to put it at the climax of the film, at the end maybe, and build up the story to that battle. But we didn't know it would be the most important scene, the most electrifying anyway, the most dramatic and authentic scene. And it was authentic because they were 2 real crews battling each other. The only thing that wasn't authentic were their names. Right. And so it wasn't until later that you guys and gals saw this film at 10 years old and saw that battle scene and got mad turned out by hip hop culture. And that's kind of why I say sometimes breaking was the lost leader of hip hop culture. It kicked open doors in many cases for the rest of the culture.
I mean, I think it's like you said, bro. It's you know, with breaking, you didn't need anything. You just need a cardboard and a windbreaker. You know, with an MC, you had to know how to rhyme. With a DJ, you had to have equipment. You know, with graph, you could do it in your notebook, but if you really want, now you got to break in the stores and still paint. So it's like you said, breaking was really the easiest thing. Good brother, I don't want to hold you. You know, get your wife fed. You know what I mean? I appreciate you taking time for chopping it up with us tonight. Bro, please let them know where can they get at you. Are you on social media? You know, where and when can we expect this? Is this like a 2025, 2026? What are we looking at?
It'll be a couple of more years.
Okay.
Couple of more years. You know, 2027 would be ideal. But maybe sooner if we're lucky. I'm on Instagram, Michael Holman 101, and I'm on Facebook and all that. I don't. My computer doesn't let me on Facebook so much anymore. But I'm on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram, Michael Holman 101. I think you can DM me. I mean, I am like an OG. I am ancient, but I think you can find me on Instagram, right? Can't you?
Yeah, I think we get you. Give us 5 more minutes because I want to talk with you a bit off camera. Penny, where can they get at you, bro?
Shoot. Well, these days just Instagram. I don't have a Twitter for like a year now. What's my Instagram? Peanuts Baton.
All right. Vay, where can they get at you, bro?
You can follow me at Vegas World INC on all platforms.
All right. And where can they get at you, bro?
You can find me on Instagram, Evasis. That's pretty much the main place to find, or 7 names, 7 in the NMS on Instagram as well.
All right, no doubt. And Kel, where can they get at you, bro? You muted.
Kelvin Davidson on Twitter, at Big Kelv on Instagram.
All right, real quick. Ev has this album out right here, Prophet. Where can I get it, Ev?
Oh, well, the Prophet is an album. Actually, it's funny. I have to give a lot of credit to B Street for this, but the Prophet is an album that's connected to a theater work about the journey of an MC. My wife is she's a choreographer for modern dance. So it's funny. That story was one of the gateways that allowed me to be like, you know what, at first when she brought it to me, I was like, because I've been a sound designer for theater for so long. So when she was like, yo, let's just do this. And I was like, it's another story. And I was like, yeah, but I don't know if I want to put all of our stuff that happens in the culture on the stage. But B Street actually, like, understanding that story was like, you know what, let's do it. Let's do it. So Prophet is, again, it's a story that talks about the journey of an MC. It's like an ethnographic kind of thing. It's multifaceted. There's an album, there's a podcast, of course, there's the theater piece. And yeah, so you can find that on 7 NMS _ at on IG.
All right, and me and Vay got the new album coming out, Vintage Bed-Stuy. We got volumes 1 and 2 out. Volume 3 is going to be a correlation of all 6 tracks so far with an extra 4 or 5 joints. You already know what it is with me, Kill889, Twitter, IG. Mike, again, appreciate your time, good brother. I will check y'all all next.
Sorry to interrupt you. You. Can you allow me to go run into my living room and get my new album?
Please. Yeah, please do, bro. Yeah, Vay, I think this joint, I'm looking forward to this joint, man. I think people have been enjoying volume 1 and 2, so you know, I think volume 3 is gonna put us over the hill on this one.
Yeah, man, we got some joints, you know. Some
yeah. And I didn't get a chance to talk about it, but the soundtrack from Beat Street is also an incredible soundtrack. So for people who don't have the album, check this out. And then, Mike, what you got?
Okay, so this is my band that I started with Jean-Michel Basquiat in 1979, Gray. We continue to make music with my other partner, Nick Taylor, also original member of DJ High Priest. This is the album here. It's called Last of the Beats. It's kind of shiny. Oops, a little shiny of the glass. The LA, you can see the LA palm trees in the background. It's Gray, Last of the Beats. You can get it on Amazon. We've got people like King Britt on this. We got Roger Guinevere Smith, Spike Lee actors on this doing vocals. Yeah, we got some really cool people on this, man. So check it out, Amazon and YouTube and on Spotify. Gray, Last of the Beats. Thank you for that.
Oh, no doubt. All right, y'all. We'll check y'all next week.